All right, guys. So I've got a video that I'm gonna react to, I guess, and kind of break down certain points that I think are important for people to understand at least the meat of what I'm talking about here, which I'll get into. So the right are known for their collectivism, their bandwagon mentality, their echo chambers to where they don't consume anything except for the same crazy narratives that they freaking take it in and then they freaking spew it out without ever thinking, without ever using critical thinking on anything that they ever consume. It's just they hear it, they spout it out as if it's a fact. It's like gospel, which is, yeah. Anyway, so the left isn't immune to this, and it happens fairly often. I would say not to the same extent that it does on the right, luckily, but it does happen. And people get stuck in these echo chambers and they start fucking getting into like pseudo intellectual crap, but they don't question it. They just automatically like, this is my side. So we're gonna get into that, I guess. So this is like roughly 11 minutes long, but it's something that's like abhorrent to me. So I think it's important. Let's dig in. Uh, Sam unloads on high IQ master race caller. Let me do a quick check. Okay, that's fine. So, just right out from the gate, I want you to notice the narrative, the what they're trying to get across just from like the title. It tells you a lot. I want you to notice how it like shapes your expectations of what the content will be going forward.
Calling from a 518 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
I'm Johan L. Reimer, and I'm calling from New York.
Johan, what's on your mind?
Well, I thought I would quickly mention the whole racism thing, and then move on to the subject of democracy. So, what I wanted to say is that while it is irrational to judge individuals on the basis of race, and while actual racial qualities don't run along white supremacist lines, they actually, well, you have Ashkenazi Jews at the top, and then Asians, and then whites, I believe, East Asians. But while they don't run along white supremacist lines, and while all individuals are different, I think I just want to state it is irrational to say that there are no differences that are biological, even if they're like a transient kind of difference, where you have somebody who is maybe affected epigenetically by the culture. So I just wanted to say that as a statement to put out there. But what I really wanted to talk about.
Notice people in the background. Oh, like another one of these. Like they've already started making assumptions. And by the way, up until this point, the guy, what he's stating, if you're not making assumptions about his character or about the intent behind why he's bringing these things up, there's absolutely nothing groundbreaking about the things that he's saying. He's factually correct. It's just true. But let's continue.
Is the subject of democracy.
Okay.
So I'm going to lay out.
Wait. Okay. Well, all right. Everybody's upset now that because they want me to push back on the fact that there are no racial differences. I mean,
everybody's upset. I like how he brings it up because he unintentionally like serves all of his cards out. He just takes them out of his sleeve and like fucking throws out. This is what he's all about. He's concerned about what people think about what he says because that's where his money comes from. This is a grifter. This is someone who, while I can't say that I disagree with everything he says, that would be retarded, and I tend to agree with him on many issues, but I don't even know if it's him, is the point, when he says these things, because he's the type of person that just tells you what you want to hear if you're on the left. It's sad. Like, he's not necessarily, at least, pushing back because he disbelieves or he thinks that the guy is incorrect. He's pushing back because he feels uncomfortable because he's worried that other people are going to think that he's a bad person or he's not on the left or something because he's not saying anything about it. But anyhow,
I don't know what hierarchy you're talking about. I mean, what do you mean
like
by
intelligence?
hierarchy?
Like,
I see what you're saying.
Ashkenazi Jews are on average smarter than say white people, or
How is that
I guess
determined?
we're white too, but
we're white too. Okay. How now that we have determined that we are on average smarter than your average person, how are we measuring that?
the IQ test, the standard IQ.
Well, now, but you've heard me say before that the IQ test is contextualized, right? So in other words, it's like saying I'm a better athlete. Well, how am I going to measure that? Because I hit more home runs than that guy who runs the 40 in 6 seconds. Am I the better athlete?
No, I mean, yeah, it is contextual. It's not supremacist. So, there.
If you want to say, listen, if you want to say that certain groups of people do better on an IQ test than other groups of people, that is demonstrable. Okay.
So he at least does this much. He at least says that's demonstrable. So, but what he tries to do, because he can't defeat this, there's no way that you can logically defeat this. So what he does is he uses emotion, and he also, well, I won't go, I'll address the next part whenever it happens, but notice how he's trying to change the goalposts. What he's doing is he's trying to compare IQ tests to like saying that someone is a better athlete because they play baseball better or whatever, when there's many different types of athletes. This is disingenuous as fuck, and I'll go further into that a little later.
Okay. But to say that IQ is a measure of anything other than what that test measures is silly.
What that test measures is IQ. Do you know what IQ means, you fucking retard? IQ stands for intelligence quotient. It's basically, in short, it's a measure of a person's ability to reason. It's supposed to, at least in theory, and I personally believe that it does so very well, it gauges how well someone can use information and logic to answer questions or make predictions. So he's trying to make this case that it's like this entirely arbitrary thing that only gauges an extremely tiny, minuscule little thing. And also he'll go into later that it's like specifically designed to like tailor toward a certain group, which is all bullshit. So what else? Yeah, I'll continue for now.
No, I agree. I agree completely. All I'm saying is the fictionalist, like completely far left perspective, is it obviously can't be true. I mean,
no, you're not saying that. You're saying you're not understanding. For someone who is part of our master race, you are having trouble getting.
Notice how the guy tells Sam what he's saying, like he is the person saying this. And Sam cuts him off and says, "That's not what you're saying." Sam thinks he knows what the other guy thinks better than he does. He's already like created this assumption that the guy's like a master race type person. When the guy literally started with that now, to be fair, he could have worded things better, but even still, he made it clear that that before he even started, like, this doesn't necessarily point to like a white supremacy type thing. And he did so by going down the hierarchy, at least in terms of intelligence, and how it starts with Ashkenazi Jews, and then it's Asians, and then it's, quote, white people, etc. But Sam is completely straw manning him here. Anyhow, let's continue.
Adding this. Listen carefully to me.
Like,
listen carefully.
Everybody knows.
Listen carefully to me. Okay? Doing well on the IQ test means that you've done well on the IQ test. It doesn't
No, I agree with that.
Right. Okay. So if you want to say Ashkenazi Jews, on average, I don't know if this is the case, but I'll take your word for it.
It's true.
Do better on the IQ test. That's fine. I mean, that's easily demonstrable. We can go and measure. But the point is, that's like saying I'm going to measure the athletic ability of someone based upon baseball, as opposed to some other sport. And you're comparing
I agree.
apples and oranges. Okay, good. So
no, I agree.
There's no one on the far left who wouldn't say we can look at the data from the IQ test and tell if some groups are better suited for the IQ test. But that's also a function of how you design the IQ test.
This guy is way too polite. Like, he should have lit fucking Sam's ass up. Now, it's true, Sam would have just fucking cut him off because that's how they operate. They go, "Oh, well, this guy's making us look bad," in the call. That's how they are. But they like to push this thing as if like anyone can call in and it's like free speech and all that, but it's complete bullshit. It's like a echo chamber, and they all like have this little circle jerk and this like agreement of how things are. And if they don't like someone, or they don't like the ideology, they will purposefully exaggerate your claim and turn you into like a fucking extreme racist or whatever, or at least try to paint the narrative that that's what you are. And then do this fucking mental gymnastic shit that Sam's doing right now. I'll continue in a moment.
No, there's some people on the left who would say that IQ tests don't measure anything. It's not they just measure particular abilities. They don't measure anything.
They don't measure anything other than how you did on the IQ test.
Incorrect. Extremely incorrect. In fact, Sam should really focus on politics and stick with politics, because psychology is not his field.
No, I mean, you could design a random test that does, that literally doesn't measure anything. An IQ test measures what it's meant to measure.
What is it meant to measure?
So it's meant to measure mathematical and verbal abilities of certain types.
Yes, of certain types that are arbitrary. They don't mean anything. They don't.
No, that's untrue. Like, you won't find any physicists with an IQ of 80.
Okay,
correct?
So if you want to say that Ashkenazi Jews make the best physicists, fine.
Yeah, you can see it. I mean,
but so what?
Look how uncomfortable Sam is.
It's not like, I'm not pointing to some kind of supremacism. I'm just saying that some people, like, on the extreme left, what they're going to do is...
I don't know who you're talking about. Who? Tell me who.
Listen to how he talks. He's calling him out.
Anita Sarkeesian would probably say that.
I don't even. Is she from Gamergate? Oh my God!
Yeah, I can. I'm not one of those Gamergate people. I can probably think of
you know what? Hey, dude,
would say it.
You are. No one else knows who she is.
He's got his finger on the button.
Adios.
Now that he's got rid of him, he's going to fucking go into depth about how he was wrong, and so that he can't push back. Because the dude's just correct. So this is the thing, and this is what I think the guy was trying to get across. There are people on the far left, and obviously Sam and his crew are part of that, but based on the way they just completely strawmanned him. that basically are like, they're so emotional about equality and all people are equal that they think literally that all people are equal. They don't think that there's differences. And Sam just, all he had to do is say, well, that's correct. And he even more, he could say, that's true, absolutely true. But I don't think that someone having higher intelligence makes them big picture superior to other people. He could just get that out of the way. Even though the other guy didn't make that claim, he could just get that out of the way and be like, yeah, it's true that people are more intelligent than other people. That's a fact. You can't change that. That's just how it is. And there are also groups of people that are more athletic than other groups of people. There are groups of people that are more creative than other groups of people, et cetera, et cetera. But instead, he pulls this fucking disingenuous bullshit. We'll listen further.
Even if you want, this is just so disgusting.
I don't understand. What I don't understand is how this guy is disproving his own premise. Because for someone who is of the master race, the Ashkenazi Jew, to not understand that the IQ test measures only how you do on the IQ test. Like,
can we also just,
what if we didn't decide that SATs should be the measure of colleges, of whether you get in? Because it's certainly not necessarily correlated to grades.
All of the colleges that Bates and Bowdoin were early to that, they started doing that in the 80s, and there's no statistically significant GPA difference between those who submitted, those who don't. Exactly your point. And the second thing is, because I'm just so disgusted with and annoyed, and even some idiot like that who just called and doesn't know what he's parroting. This is the intellectual, quote unquote, wing of resurgent racism in this country. It's the wine track version of what Linda Gordon was talking about. And even if you want to take it on a really material level, everybody is interbred in this country, man. Like, I don't believe in any of this essentialist to be not.
The guy was not making the case that there's a master race. Look how they're trying to fucking strawman him.
Nonsense to begin with, but like, black people in this country were frankly going back raped for generations by white people. Like there
not enough Ashkenazi Jews.
I know. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
And just
you're talking about a arbitrary visual characteristic which has to do with sun exposure. This it is.
He never said anything about skin color. They're strawmanning the fuck out of him. He's also trying to push this thing that like what was I gonna say? Hold on, let me rewind.
Ashkenazi Jews.
I know. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
And just
you're talking about a arbitrary visual characteristic which has to.
Oh yeah. They're trying to make it as if an IQ test is like only represents knowledge in specific categories. And he'll go on in a moment to say that like it would be as if we changed the IQ test to like measure how well people do in like farming. And the reason why he does this is because he's trying to make this false analogy that an IQ test is, again, all about these random arbitrary things. And it's just knowledge. That's it. That's all it gauges. And if it were farming, then it would be the same thing. It would be like, this is what a tractor, they like mention some random tractor thing and like a specific part for a tractor and see if they know what that is. That is knowledge. And that is complete bullshit. And it's a fucking straw man argument. I'll go into detail after this is over.
Through its sun exposure. This it is so ridiculous.
We say this every time, but the obfuscation they make is the difference between groups is the difference between races, and groups are different because of things like history and environment and the culture, like all those things. It's not racial.
He needs to go back and read some Adolf Reed and find out where race came from.
Ashkenazi Jews spent a significant portion of recorded history, or at least the past 2,000 years, in enclaves studying the Talmud. Like, because you were not emancipated and were not involved in other practices, and therefore there was a tradition in that cultural group. Not because God came down and said, I have done an IQ test for you guys. So at Yavna in the year 60, I'm going to give you guys the book. It just so happened that this group of people said the way that we're going to maintain our identity is to focus on reading and commentary on that.
Yeah, and then somehow
provided-
that cultural training versus innate biological trait is helpful for test taking.
We're 130 years away from literally the first time you were allowed to leave the ghetto and go involve in sitting around reading the Talmud.
Usury.
In usury.
And just a coincidence, like black people have their own history of certain, like in their case, getting shut out of being threatened with death if they read.
Oh yeah, no,
and the
killed
idea,
if you read.
Murdered, the idea that a arbitrary test that has been shown where you can design the exact same test to favor other groups based upon what, like I could take kids in the city and if I ask them all farm questions, they're going to do bad. I could structure everything in the exact same way, but I just do all farm animals.
By the way, this has not been shown. There was some pushback, but any credible psychologist threw the pushback to the wayside because it's retarded and pseudo-intellectual. It was a person much like Sam who's trying to make this sunshine and rainbows case that all people are created equally, much like Garner, which I'll go into in a moment.
Versus kids in the country, and you're going to get vastly different results. I already talked about that Aboriginal experiment in Australia.
People should watch that. That's on YouTube. There's also one from a group they studied in Africa, where first they had people put a pattern together in a certain way, which was wrong according to the test, and then they asked the people who are doing it. They said, "Now can you do the test? Can you do the puzzle the way a fool would do it?" And then they did it according to the correct answer of the test. Like they just did a different pattern because they basically organized space in a different way because of the jobs they had to do in their day-to-day lives. It's really like just stop with these calls.
Calling from 886. No, don't stop.
Oh, excuse me. Don't stop with these calls.
No, don't stop with the calls.
Pardon.
We're getting so many.
Just don't think you can preface your first. I'm going to make a quick point that's actually rationally.
Come
that's
at it and speak. Don't be and don't say some and this and that and listen. If you're citing someone who only people who are familiar with Gamergate know, then I got news for you. You know too much about game.
Retarded. All right. So, IQ tests are not arbitrary, and no legitimate psychologist would ever make that claim. And that's not just an appeal to authority. That's literally like, if you're going to say that IQ tests are completely bullshit, arbitrary, or that they measure only like they favor a certain group over others, then you might as well take all psychology and throw it out the window, because it's literally what psychology stemmed from. And it's been the most studied, the most foundational principle to psychology that there is. All right. So IQ measures different aspects of intelligence, primarily problem solving, logical reasoning, and verbal and nonverbal abilities. And it does so extraordinarily well. All of the mistakes that we made in the beginning have been like slowly cropped out. And at this point, especially in my opinion, the Stanford Binet, they're extremely accurate. And how can you tell so? Because you can take people that have, you can observe and measure their intellectual capacity, so to speak, and you can give them different tests that are measured in the exact same way, and they will get a remarkably accurate and identical number within a couple of points, because it actually does measure what it claims to measure. So they're trying to make this like the farmer deal that I was talking about. They're trying to make this case that all that an IQ test measures is that you're good at taking an IQ test, which is absolutely bullshit. It's not just random like trivia or like, hey, knowledge. It's not like, oh, you know about this. It primarily deals with your ability to use problem solving, to think outside the box, logical reasoning, the things that I already mentioned. And it does so extremely fucking well. So this is pseudo fucking intellectual bullshit that they're spouting. Now, another thing that I sort of mentioned is Garner was in his time, he was a big person that kind of changed the way IQ tests and IQ was thought of. He's the one that pioneered the multiple intelligence theory. Now, it's not a coincidence that today most psychologists tend to take Garner and think of him as sort of, I don't know, to put it politely, he's not well thought of. They don't take his work very seriously because he basically just wanted to be all happy and, oh, this is the good stuff that people want to hear. That's not science. That's not truth. It's not that like I want things to be negative. It's that truth is more important than you being happy with the result. That's how science works. So what kind of destroyed Garner is G factor. G factor theory, or G, and G stands for general. And what happened is we determined that in Garner's multiple intelligences, and yes, there are multiple like traits with humans, but they're not types of intelligence. What they are is it's mainly about personality that determines like the deviation and the strengths and weaknesses in those areas. However, G factor destroyed this belief that you can have like a high IQ in one area, like bodily kinesthetic function, and not do so well in others. The reason why is because general intelligence, as it's come to be known today, tends to make people exceptional across the board. All traits that was like Garner's multiple intelligences, which shows that there's only one type of intelligence. And people who are highly intelligent, although this is bleak and fucked up or however you want to take it, it doesn't matter. What is true is what matters. There are people that have high intelligence and they tend to rank highly across the board. That's simply how it is. So why do they have to like fucking perform mental gymnastics and just fucking outright lie? Because I do not believe, I don't know about everyone, but I know that Sam is intelligent enough to know he knows better. He's fucking grifting and pulling this bullshit out of his ass, and it's sad. So, because I make the statement, and also this is another thing, they try to also make this case that all, or at least a vast majority of all of what is measured in IQ tests is nurture. That is not true. In fact, fluid intelligence is very tiny, and that is at least in your lifetime, that is the intelligence that can be changed. There's very little you can do. So almost all of it, and now you could make the other nurture case that like people in your past, and that's also what they were trying to do, that like people in their past and their upbringing led to their current intellectual situation, which is true to an extent, but they're making the case that it's all, which is absolute fucking pseudoscience. That's not true. And psychology has proven otherwise. That's bullshit. Almost all of your intelligence, a vast majority at the least, is biological in nature. It's at birth. That is what you've got. That's what you're gonna have. You can change that to a small extent, but it's very little. That's the truth. It's not about trying to be like they make these intent and assumptions. Like I make this case, and then you're like, they would probably be like, oh yeah, you think you're bald, without knowing anything about me. They would be like, oh yeah, you're bald, and you're making this case. You're a white nationalist. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm like the furthest fucking thing ever from a white nationalist. In fact, I fucking hate Nazis, like with a passion. Some people would say I'm obsessed with racism. So it's fucking stupid. Like, they're just fucking wrong. And moreover, Sam, at the very least, is not just wrong because he doesn't even believe what he's claiming. He's a fucking liar. That's just fucking bullshit. I'm almost certain that he knows better. So yeah, this is why fucking you shouldn't have this like identity attachment to your political lean. Like, I'm on the left, and Sam Cedar and the Majority Report, whatever, is on the left. So, and then he pulls this like happy little fucking bullshit worldview that he fucking lies about and spews out. And people are just like, yeah, that's the left. No, it's fucking bullshit. And just because someone shares some views with you does not mean that they're being honest. It doesn't mean that they are just automatically right. Thank you for your time.